up, guys? Hylian Hero here, and the day has finally come. I'm finally here to review The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Before the game came out, before we knew how much content was stuffed into this game, I was super confident. I really thought it was going to be, game comes out middle of May, takes me a couple weeks to complete it to my liking, I get the review out by the end of May, early June. I did not even get finished with... I still haven't finished all the side quests, but in terms of story completion, I didn't get finished with that probably until the end of the late to really end of June. Yeah, June. And I started writing my review, and I kind of got stuck. Not that there wasn't anything to talk about, but there was so much to talk about. I needed to give myself some time to simmer on it. I wanted to write out my thoughts, get them gathered as best as possible, because I know I like to do my rambling reviews. And here we are. End of July, this will be out sometime in early August. This game. Obviously, if you guys have followed the channel for more than a little while and heard my perspective on Zelda, Breath of the Wild so quickly became not only my favorite Zelda game, but my favorite game of all time. It's just so full of content, so open, it was so new, that coming into Tears of the Kingdom, I really didn't know what to expect, I guess. I was thinking, okay, there's a lot they can add to it, but there's also, how do you top Breath of the Wild? Well, now we have our answer, because spoiler alert, I do believe this game in almost every aspect tops Breath of the Wild. I'm not going to be giving this game a score, because it's pointless. You guys already know that this is one of the greatest games of all time. It's Nintendo's Magnum Opus. It's amazing. That being said, yeah, you guys know my review. It's my new favorite game of all time. I'm going to spoil that right now. But, like I do with most of my reviews, I just want to go through a bunch of talking points, like the things that I really liked and things I really not so much liked with this game. I'll admit there's not really any of them I really didn't like, but there was definitely a few things I found a little underwhelming, to say the least. But yeah, I think my biggest, hope going into Tears of the Kingdom was that the story was going to be miles better than Breath of the Wild. I know a lot of people like to dog on the story in Breath of the Wild because it's all in the past. You really don't get to experience much. Everything you get to see throughout the cutscenes and stuff is stuff that's happened 100 years ago. There wasn't anything that you could do to change it. There wasn't anything going on in the present besides the new champions and stuff like that, so it definitely had its issues. So going into the game, I was hoping a more present story and a more interactive one. I won't lie, when we first see Zelda get yeeted into the past, and we saw that memories were coming back, that really hurt me. I was thinking, oh no, they're gonna fall in the same trap that they did with Breath of the Wild, where all the cool stuff is gonna happen in the past, and nothing is gonna happen for Link. There's nothing gonna be available for Link to do to progress the story. And while I don't think I'm completely wrong about that, I do think it was handled in probably one of the best ways they could have gone about it. So if you don't know, Zelda goes into the past. Zelda meets the first king and queen of this Hyrule, being Sonia and Rauru. Great characters, very likable. Zelda gets to spend a lot of time with them until, as you can expect, Ganondorf shows up, starts causing problems. That's all expected. There is some good twists and turns throughout that bit of the story. Obviously, the one at the very end, which I'm still not going to spoil, just in case anyone still hasn't seen it. It's a mind-blowing revelation. I think that was probably the biggest moment in Zelda history that my jaw just hit the floor. That being said, it would have been cool to have Zelda in more of a present role, more even playable. I know I was having a conversation with Daniel Alba of GVG in our spoiler review we posted a week or two ago, and he mentioned how it would have been really cool if it did like kind of a Paper Mario thing in between dungeons, and you get to play as Zelda through these sequences. Now, it's possible this happens for DLC, it's possible it just never happens and we don't get to play it with Zelda, but I think that would have been a really cool thing to do. Just give Zelda something to do, give Zelda her own little, like, non-combat focused moveset. Maybe she can just mess around with some stuff with recall. I think that would be really cool. But, that being said, I think the story in the present is fantastic. Because, I mean, given the upheaval, as it's called, is happening once Link and Zelda start the game. They go underground, they find the corpse of Ganondorf, and all this gets set into motion. A lot of strange things start happening in the world. So, the Gerudo, the Zora, the Rito, and the Gorons all have some funky stuff going on in each of their quadrants of the world. And just like in Breath of the Wild with the Divine Beasts, you go to each one of them, you help them out. It's all well and good. Thankfully, it didn't fall into the same pitfalls that Breath of the Wild did, and it actually has some really cool story-based stuff that you do before you hit each of the dungeons there. So, I mean, I think most of us went to the Zora's Domain first in Breath of the Wild, and we had that really cool just lead up to Zora's Domain. We got to sneak around the Lionel, get the shock arrows, and then that was when you finally got to go to the dungeon. So I think all of us were kind of expecting that to happen to all of the regions. But then, at least for me, I think I went to the Rito second, and you just walk into town, you talk to somebody, you go somewhere else, you do a quick target minigame, and then you're in the dungeon. And it was kind of like that for most of the other places. Like, you really didn't spend much time getting to know these people before going in, doing the dungeon, and leaving. But thankfully that has been vastly solved. You spend a good bit of time in most of these places, if not all of them, because they're all having bigger issues. So, like, the Ritos got, like, this storm above them, so it's freezing. All the adults are out, like, hunting for food stuff, and that leaves the children to have to take care of the village. And then you help them try to figure out how to stop this whole thing, and it's a really cool story arc. The Gerudo have just basically a never-ending sandstorm with Gibdos, like, just wreaking havoc, which to the point where it's put all the Gerudos underground in, like, the secret village they've always had. And those are just a couple of examples, but they're more present in the story, they have a lot more investment, and they rely on Link a lot more. It's really, really cool to see. I mean, I was really nervous that we were going to show up to these places, half of them weren't going to remember us, or if they did, it was just going to be like, oh, hey, you were the one that saved Hyrule, nice, can you help us out again? But no, like, all the newer champions, they're present, they're excited, and they're actually in the story, they fight with you. It's really cool. May as well talk about dungeons while we're here. I did not like the Divine Beasts. I think that's a pretty general consensus from the mainstream players. I liked them at first. Like I said, the Rudo, Rudo was the first one I went to in Breath of the Wild. Having the really cool lead up really boosted my excitement for it. And it was cool the first time around. But they were all basically the same design, just a different animal and a slightly different mechanic that you mess around with. They got boring really quickly. I don't want to say that Tears of the Kingdom completely fixed that, but I think we're kind of in a good, like, middle ground for what I was hoping to see. So I would say with the 4 main dungeons, 2 of them are kind of Divine Beast, like, not really. They have their own stuff going on, and other 2 are much closer to traditional Zelda dungeons. And I think the 2 more traditional ones being the Goron and then the Gerudo ones, those were my highlights for the dungeons. Not saying the Rito and the Zora quests and dungeons weren't great, I just think, especially the Zora one, could have been a little bit more. I have no issues with the Rito. I thought that one was really cool. And I think I might have not liked the Zora one so much because I saved that one for last. Just because I did the Zora one first in Breath of the Wild, I was thinking, okay, I want to give this one a fair shot last. I want to see if there's like a difficulty spike. I basically just cheesed the entire dungeon, so that kind of ruined my experience a little bit because I was so overpowered by the time I got there. The game took me roughly 155 hours to get to about 75%, like, complete game completion. So I must have gone there around the 120 to 130 hour mark, so I was definitely way too overpowered for that dungeon. I think when I do my next playthrough somewhere down the line, I'm going to do the Zora one next to see if it improves my enjoyment. But going in with basically every other ability, it didn't do it for me. So dungeons, I think, were about as close as they could be to reaching the happy middle from older traditional Zelda-style dungeons we've gotten in Skyward Sword and before that. And then the more open-ended things that Breath of the Wild and the Divine Beast have to do because it's not the same type of gameplay structure as the older Zeldas. I'd want to see a little bit more refining on them, but overall I'm quite happy with what they brought to us here. I think they're a far cry from being like the peak Zelda dungeons we've had in the past, but I'm actually looking forward to replaying these going forward in my future playthroughs, and I can't say that exactly for Breath of the Wild, because if I didn't have to play them again, I probably wouldn't. Speaking of just the overall world design, they were so smart to keep the depths a secret until launch. Sure, there was a couple little gameplay snippets of it in the trailers, especially, I believe, the February Direct and Beyond, but they never told you what it was. Like, you could have just assumed it was like a cave or some dark structure. They didn't tell you anything. But there's this entire underground world, just basically the entire size of Hyrule, just under there. And sure, there's not a ton to do, but it's so eerily creepy, it's so dark, it's so quiet, and it's a really good way of mining Zonites. And it's a good way of fighting enemies. You can find some really cool loot down there that's not only just new items and weapons and stuff, but armor from the past Zelda games. Like, basically all of the amiibo gear from Breath of the Wild is back, but it's just hidden away in the depths most of the time. There's a few that are in the mainland, but most of them are just hiding away, and you can find treasure maps in the sky to find these certain places, and it's really cool back and forth, because you can either come across them on your own on accident, or you'll have these maps and you just go sleuthing for them. So that was really cool. Also, there's like certain special weapons down there that are not rusted, and there's Poes that you can collect to get some special like items and stuff as well. So that was good. Something I wasn't the biggest fan of, I won't lie, is the sky. So obviously you start the game in the Great Sky Island. That's a fantastic tutorial. I don't think it's quite as good as Breath of the Wild's Great Plateau was, but it's kind of hard to top that one because it was just so open, so like in your face. It was well paced. That's beside the point. I think we saw so much of the sky in like all the trailers since 2021 that when we finally got up there, it kind of felt empty. So, I don't know, like, in the lead up to the game, I was thinking, okay, there's going to be so many sky islands, there's going to be so much stuff to do, and there is a bunch of stuff to do. But in each quadrant of the map, there's basically the same kind of puzzle to get into the shrine in that area. You have to find an orb or whatever it is. You have to either figure out how to build some stuff to get it to the certain spot, or you fight a boss and carry it back. Like, they do different things with it, but none of them, after the first couple times, are super exciting. There's capsule machines that can give you Zonai devices, and I mean, here we are almost 15 minutes into this review, and I still haven't even talked about the Zonai devices. I haven't talked about the new mechanics that this game brings. So, Ultra Hand will help you, like, just pick up things. It's kind of like Magnesis in Breath of the Wild, but I'd say it's so much better. It'll let you put, like, attach things to each other. There's so much, like, opportunity, like, creativity. It's awesome. You can build, like, hovercrafts, hot air balloons, certain, like, mechanical weapons. So exciting. It's so great. It makes it so that every traveling on foot is almost just not necessary at all, even if you don't like riding the horses, because you can just create, like, a hovercraft. You can create, like, a little cart or something. It's exciting, and there's so many different Zonai devices. So there's, like, a rocket, there's a time bomb, there's so many different items. There's, like, a stabilizer that'll help your build stand up so they don't fall as easily. And they give them to you. You can just go to a Zonai machine, give some, like, I believe it's Zonai cores, and you can just get so many of them. Each, like, little capsule machine has different ones, and you can pull them out whenever you like. It makes it so exciting just to build. I'll admit I didn't spend too much time on that myself. I've never been much of a creative thinker, so I basically built my hovercraft and called it a day. I'd like mess with the pre-build options they give you later on as you progress through the game, but outside of that, I really didn't do much of that myself. There's the other abilities are recall, so you can set things back in time. I found that to be really cool. Like, if your builds just, like, get away from you and you don't want to rebuild them or you don't want to chase after them, you can just bring them back to where they are. You can do it for certain, like, world elements to help you climb or get higher up into an area. That one I didn't do too much with, but it was still really cool regardless. My favorite one was... my favorite ones are Fuse and Ascent. Fuse is what it sounds like. It's basically this game's crafting mechanics. So you'll get monster parts like you did in Breath of the Wild by battling monsters, but this time you can attach them to arrows, you can attach them to weapons, shields, and they'll add durability. They'll add durability and they'll add attack power. It's so cool to be able to just add a spear to a spear, so you have a really long spear, or a really strong Hinox part to a sword, and you can demolish enemies. I'll admit, I found the really strong materials towards the end of the game that I liked, and I kind of stuck to those, but in the beginning, it is so fun to mess around with certain things. Like, you can fuse one of your bombs that you can collect, or, like, one of the explosive barrels that you'll find in some enemy camps. You can put it on a shield and, like, go to shield surf, and it'll just launch you so high up without damaging yourself, and then without having to, like, create, like, a certain device. And there's so many maneuver options. And I forgot to mention this, but certain arrow types are also not in this game. So there's, like, fire arrows, the ice, the explosives, they're all gone. You'll have to fuse, like, either certain ores, certain, like, choo-choo parts, certain just materials you'll get throughout while exploring the game, and then you just fuse them and they'll do the action you think they're gonna do. And there's so much thought put into this game that every little thing, like, you'll think, will this work? Most times it will. So that's exciting. Ascend is just, if there's a ceiling above you and parameters let you, you can just climb through the ceiling. And it's almost always works. There's certain spots in the depths where you'll be able to ascend, and it'll bring you all the way up to the surface without any load strings. Like, yeah, there may be like a 10-15 second thing where you're just watching Link swim up, but it just depends on how far down you are. Another thing I want to talk about before I go into, like, my last couple cons is, there's the side quests in this game are so much better. Like, most side quests in Breath of the Wild just revolved around, hey, can you bring me 50 of these items? Hey, can you bring me 20 of this? It got pretty annoying, it got pretty tedious. But there's side quests and side adventures now. So the side adventures are the more in-depth ones that help build like story and stuff, but even the side quests, more times than not, you're going and hunting for something, you're going to take a picture of something. Not always super exciting things, and usually the rewards aren't great, but it's really cool to see this, like, interacting with all the characters, and like, every single character, besides one, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, comes back in Breath of the Wild. Comes back from Breath of the Wild, and you get to re-interact with them. The flower lady who's guarding the shrine has a cool little story arc that I really enjoyed. It's just, it feels like you're coming home. And there's certain, like, plot holes. I feel like Tears of the Kingdom just kind of expects that whoever played Breath of the Wild did, like, the bare minimum. Because you'll end up in, like, Hateno Village, and certain NPCs that you've helped just don't remember you. So it kind of feels a little plot hole-ish, because, I mean, obviously, like, the Hudson from Terrytown will remember you, certain, like, bigger, more important story characters will. But then you'll just go up and talk to somebody, and they don't act like you saved Hyrule, they don't act like you have any importance besides being Zelda's guard. And it's kind of just off-putting, especially since she kind of stole your house. I don't know, it's not confirmed if you live there with her, but it kind of looks like you do, but that's beside the point. Another thing that, like, really impresses me is how well this game runs on Switch. I mean, there is so much stuff going on that you would expect this game to chug. And it kind of did at launch, but they basically did, like, a day one, or I think it was a pre-launch update, that fixed a lot of it and just made everything run so much smoother. But you can jump all the way from the highest point in the sky all the way into the depths, and there's not a single loading screen, and at least in my playthrough, I didn't have any hiccups or, like, big lag spikes getting down to those places. It was an absolute joy, and it felt like this game was actually made for Switch, which, unlike Breath of the Wild, it was. Ganondorf in this game, he's awesome. I mean, the stakes kind of feel like they've never been higher. I would say besides Twilight Princess. Like, in Twilight Princess, he doesn't really show up until the end, but he's badass. The final boss is really cool. In this game, he's actually present. Like, he's launching attacks against Rauru and Sonia's forces. He wants to take over Hyrule from the start. And especially in the past, he does certain things that I didn't see coming, that I was shocked they put into a Zelda game. Like, it's so cool how they handle his development, and hearing Ganondorf speak for the first time is so exciting for me. I think it's even more exciting than hearing Zelda speak. Because he was so well casted. Matt Mercer is a fantastic voice actor for him. He really was able to just emphasize the Ganondorf, the demeanor of him, because he's a scary guy. He's bulky, he's very tall. You wouldn't want to meet up with him anywhere because you fear for your life. But you really do feel his weight on the world and how much he wants to just destroy it. Because he's always around. I mean, there's certain side quests that you'll do with this, I guess, the cast replacement, I hate calling him. His name is Penn, and he works for the Lucky Clover Gazette, and you'll help him basically at every single stable to do things. And there's just certain quests in there and in the actual story where you'll hear rumblings about Zelda doing some pretty bad things. And then later in the story you'll find out why that is, but as you can imagine, Ganondorf has something to do with it, so he's always around. You really don't see him much in the present, but he is constantly around. He's constantly trying to thwart your plans. Very well done. I'm not going to spoil anything for the end of the game, but the ending is so much better than Breath of the Wild. That is all I'm going to tell you. I don't really have many cons. I wrote 3 down here, and one was the sky was kind of underwhelming. We went over that a little bit. It's not very important. Like, it still does its job quite well, but I found myself wanting to be in the surface or even the depths more. I loved my time in the sky. It just, towards the end, it kind of felt a little bit like, okay, you do some battles up here, you fly around, you go into this random spear, you get the shrine, rinse and repeat, you're done. But that's beside the point. We kind of talked about this one a little bit during the story portion, but the memories are... I hate saying they're disappointing, but they kind of are. With this type of game, it's really hard to develop a story while staying in the completely open-air mechanics and, like, world design that Zelda has been built on for these last 2 games. So I get why they kind of have to be there, because you either make the story way too linear, and then what's the point of having this extreme open world if you have to just follow these certain waypoints every time? So I get it. And the memories are, well, a lot better done in this game, so I really don't have much of an issue with it, I guess. That being said, it still kind of bums me out. But the biggest hindsight, like, why did they do this? Where's Cass? Like, if he's going to be in DLC, that'd be fantastic. It makes total sense. He is not in this game at all. You can go to his perch in, I want to say it's the wetlands over towards the Rito Village. And he's just not there. He's mentioned once by Pen, and I don't even think his family mentions him in Rito Village. He's just gone. And there's no story explanation to it at all. They just act like he doesn't exist. Besides, like, a couple winks and nudges. So I wonder if they're saving him for DLC, like a DLC story campaign where he comes back triumphantly. But just the lack of Cass does not make any sense to me. But those are really just my 3 little nitpicks outside of, like, the stuff that I've already mentioned before. Couple last things I somehow forgot to mention because this game is so massive is the enemy variety in this game is so much better than it was in Breath of the Wild. In Breath of the Wild, you had the Hinoxes, the Moblins, the Bokoblins, the Stalnoxes, and a few other enemies, and that was kind of it. You saw those in different skill levels, just throughout the game. They get stronger as you go, different colors. That was kind of it. But in Tears of the Kingdom, they like tripled the amount of enemies. There's the Gleeoks, there's, I don't remember what their names are. I think they're the Flux Cores, the ones in the sky that just will wreck you if you don't know how to use your abilities properly. And then there's the, obviously the Gibdo, stuff like that. There was, I forgot their names, but they're the ones in the caves, the Horoblins. Those were so cool, and it's just the amount of times that I was just walking through an area and just a new enemy popped up, it was great. Because I really didn't have high expectations that they were going to go that above and beyond with the enemies, but they did. So that was fantastic. And then I think the last thing I want to talk about that somehow was not in my notes was the amount of caves. The caves are great. The caves are so exciting to have in the game. So you'll just be walking around, you'll see one of the, I think they're called boobles, the little deer-like things, the blue ones. And they'll just run right into the cave, and they'll lead you right there, or you can just come across them yourselves. Some will have shrines in them, some will have bosses, like these big enemy camps. Some will just have treasure and certain armor pieces. It's so cool to see that. And there's like, I want to say like 150, 200 of them in the game, and each one gives you a certain, like, if you find this certain bubble frog, they'll give you this gem, and then that takes part in like an actual side quest that gives you other items and gear. It's so cool. I feel like this is my longest time I've ever ranted to myself about a Zelda game, or any game really, and I hope I got most of my thoughts out on it. There's so much to this game, but I just need to get this review out. I spent almost 160 hours on my first playthrough. For comparison, I think Breath of the Wild took me 70, 80. And it's great. I honestly don't know what else to say. Like, this game was such a joy to play. I must have played it, like, the first week, like, 8 to 10 hours a day. Borderline obsessive. Loved every second of it. There was not really many lulls in my playthrough. Like, I never really wanted to put it down. I didn't want to walk away. And I think that is the best compliment I can give to a game. So if you played the game, and I'm hoping you have, let me know what you think about it in the comments. I want to read it. I want to see how you guys are feeling. If you guys have any nitpicks that I didn't address, let me know. But yeah, I mean, that's it. And now I've got to go finish Pikmin 4 to hopefully get that review to you guys a lot sooner. I mean, guys, this year was just made for me. Like, Zelda and Pikmin back to back. Like I said, if you know me, you know me. This is, like, so exciting for me. But if you stuck around for this last half hour, thank you so much. And if you like what we're doing, subscribe, give us a like. Yeah, I'm gonna go play some more Pikmin now. Alright, bye guys.